Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Megan Roberts, the Executive Director for the Association of Women in Water, Energy, and Environment. We call ourselves AWWE for short. Our mission is to foster a community dedicated to the advancement of all women in the fields we serve. I want to start the session by thanking our partner organizations, first and foremost, CWEA for their tremendous leadership to organize this event, ACWA, the American Water Works Association, California, Nevada section, BAYWORK, and CASA. We are thrilled to have over 200 people registered for today's Path to Power event. The Path to Power is AWWE's longest running event series and our most requested event. In these events, we hear candidly from women leaders in our fields about their professional journeys, the challenges they've encountered and overcome, what they love about their work, and what advice they would offer to women hoping to pursue a similar path. We are streaming from a studio today, but this is a live event, and I hope those of you who are signed in to Zoom will put your questions for our panelists into the Q&A, and we'll try to work them all in. It is now my pleasure to introduce the moderator for today's event, Jennifer Persike. Jennifer is on the board of multiple nonprofits, including the AWWE Board of Directors, the ACWA Foundation, the Water Education Foundation, and the Red Cross, among others. Jennifer has had an impressive career in the water industry, where she served for over 30 years at ACWA, and she just added author to her resume as a contributor to the new book, The Joy of Work. It's my pleasure to pass it to Jennifer.
Thank you so much, Megan. It's great to be with all of you today, and yes, this is live. And I'm thrilled to moderate this discussion with a group of amazing women water leaders. Each of our panelists around the table with us today really offer up a unique perspective, experience, background that we all can learn from. So I'm excited to dig into this. Our goal with this panel is to share strategies for overcoming challenges, finding that elusive balance between our work and personal lives, and how can you best navigate the wonderful world of water and build a successful career. So that's what we're exploring in the panel today. And we're also going to be really excited to get your questions. So start thinking about what you might want to ask now. I'm certain we're all going to come away with some great information and advice that will help all of us on our own career journeys. So let me now introduce my impressive panel, and I will start with Anecita Agustinez, who is the Tribal Policy Advisor for the California Department of Water Resources. She is also a citizen of the Navajo Nation. Welcome, Anecita. Next, we have Taryn Ravazzini, who is president and founder of T. Ravazzini Consulting, LLC, and is currently serving as the very first executive director of the Los Vaqueros Reservoir Joint Powers Authority. Welcome, Taryn. And we have Helen Hu, who is operations and maintenance manager at the Regional SAN in Sacramento. Welcome, Helen. It's great to see you. So now we're going to let each of our panelists get into a little more depth about their impressive careers, and we're going to start with Anecita.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. I really want to say it's an honor to be here and to really thank our sponsors for putting together an opportunity to join colleagues and women industry professionals. So as you said, I'm a citizen of the Navajo Nation. My clans are Bitterwater on my mother's side, and Twinichitni is our Navajo way of saying Bitterwater. And my father's Filipino, so I say I'm born for the Ilocano people. So it's a unique background. I was born and raised in Central California, although my family is from Arizona. My family still lives in the northern parts of Arizona. And I'm really proud to say that my daughter has returned back home, lives on our land, is raising my 4 granddaughters there. And so I also, as you mentioned, I serve as the Tribal Policy Advisor for the California Department of Water Resources. And I'm just really pleased that I'm celebrating my 10 years there. And the Department of Water Resources, we manage the largest state water project in the United States, and my job and role is to provide strategic advice to our leadership and recommendations on navigating the information and collaboration and engagement with tribal communities in the state of California. And we have a unique situation in California, having the largest population of Native American citizens, not only from California tribes, but a lot of tribes representing other non-California tribes. And so that's a big ask for our state because, you know, as we know, our situation is the 4th largest economy with the largest Native American population in the United States, almost 1 million individual citizens in California. Prior to working at the Department of Water Resources, I did 5 years at the Department of Justice. I did had the pleasure of serving under Attorney General Jerry Brown and Attorney General Kamala Harris before she went to the Senate, and that really gave me my introduction to state government, and so I'm really pleased with that. And so this is you know, just kind of just a snapshot of just, you know, getting into state service. So it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anecita. Very impressive journey so far. Can't wait to hear more. All right, Taryn, tell us more about you.
Great, well, thank you. And it really is a pleasure to be here with these wonderful women in water. And thank you very much for the opportunity. You know, my background is kind of a range of topics that really started in government more so than water. And that was my real pleasure, was to get into the water industry. And right now, I'm currently, after a couple of decades, leading a joint powers authority, which is a partnership in the water industry between 8 major members in the Northern California, investing in an expansion project of the Los Vaqueros Reservoir. And this is a very important collaboration that I'm very pleased to be a part of as we move forward in trying to create some regional resiliency in the current state of affairs here in the California water climate. My background, I have a law degree and have had the opportunity to work in the policy arena of water industry. I had the luxury of working for the California Department of Water Resources alongside Anecita, and that was a pleasure. I have had experience with working with the Association of California Water Agencies, which gave me really my first opportunity to see broadly the range and variety of water issues that plague this state, and also an opportunity to work with the many fine people who are involved in this industry. My opportunities at the state level came through the Brown administration as an appointee. I had an opportunity to work with the Delta Stewardship Council, which is a very unique, fairly new state agency responsible for implementing the Delta Plan, a comprehensive water management plan for the Delta. And then I moved over to the Department of Water Resources as their first deputy director for special initiatives. And it was there that I ended up taking over the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act program and developing that from really from the ground up. And that was truly one of career highlights for me. So I continue on now, working alongside many of my esteemed colleagues to just continue to move forward on this important kind of policy issue for California, which is really ensuring that we have a water supply for our growing population, and also managing how we can ensure that the environment is supported as well. And you know, it's again a pleasure to be here, and thank you for this. I look forward to the questions.
Wow, that's a lot of stuff. I can't wait to hear more about what you've learned. And now we're going to go to Helen. Tell us more, Helen.
Thank you for inviting me here, and I'm glad to be on the same panel as everyone else. Honored to be here. I started out, well, I currently manage the Control and Electrical Systems Group at Regional SAN, overseeing the control shop, the electrical shop, and our plant control, computer control systems team, and then the business efficiencies office. I started out in the water industry as assistant engineer with Regional SAN, working on regulatory work such as the NPDES and recycle water. Then I was promoted into assistant engineer, and then subsequently senior engineer. I've done asset management, master planning, and in the last 10 years or so, I also dive into the world of non-engineering, the administrative side, doing budget and a bit of HR during class studies and everything in between, including career fairs. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Wonderful. So you're sort of a technical side, and then on the what they call the softer side of the organization. So you're going to have some good stuff for us. Thank you all for that. And now we're going to delve in with some fun topics around your careers, and see what we can learn that we can maybe help those watching apply to their own careers. I'm going to start with this question. I'm going to go back to Anecita. This is a bit of a combo question. So you have been on a certain career path, and we want to know, is this what you had envisioned? Is this what you thought you'd see yourself doing in your career so far? And what specifically drew you to the wonderful world of water? And then I'll have some follow-up.
Great. Well, I've been contemplating that question because there's so much that I could say, and I do say that I think that when you've been as many decades as I have been living, it's almost kind of like you fall into something, but then you realize that it wasn't a fall in, that actually everything was leading up to this to make you be prepared for this opportunities. And yes and no way did I imagine that I would be a policy advisor, working for the state of California. That just, even living in Sacramento, I was raising my children in San Jose, and very happy there. And I think that, that was, that early career was really in community engagement, working with the community, working with grassroots organization, and working with a lot of women-led nonprofits, and not realizing all of that was building up to the engagement that I do now on a daily basis. And so, going from that, and then, being introduced, working at nonprofit world, and also then taking a diversion after the children were raised and going to college into film and media. And so I founded a tribally chartered nonprofit called On Native Ground, and we specialized in environmental justice documentaries, as well as we established the first On Native Ground youth reports. So it was kind of like an Entertainment Tonight style of reporting by young anchors who were 12 to 15 years old. And my job was preparing those anchors, and we did Sundance Film Festivals for 6 years, and we were literally the only Native American media outlet. Now you see a proliferation of Native media, but this was in the early 2000s when that was not something that was being done, and I'm really proud of that, and the films that we did, and a lot of the films that are still being produced on Native Ground really address a lot of the social trends that are happening now, like for instance, the murdered missing Indigenous women movement, the environmental impacts and climate change, and also doing rock operas, which is something that I was really excited to be a part of. And I regret that I don't have the time to be able to do that, because that was something that I've always enjoyed the arts and enjoyed writing, and so that was something that was a passion project. And then of course coming into the state, and then realizing what could I do for the state, and then getting the job in the Attorney General's office, and being able in the Attorney General's office to really get this bird's eye view of state government. And I think that really jump-started my ability to be in policy, because when you work in the Attorney General's office, you are the you are the legal advisor for all of state agencies, and there are over 200 state agencies in the state of California, all requiring some level of interaction with tribal governments. And so that really gave me the bird's eye view, like what I could do for the tribal community. And I think as a young college student, I think my goal and passion was, how am I going to give back to my community? That was always at my forefront. And so I think, the yes portion to the question is, yes, I'm probably envisioning something that I probably envisioned as a young, my 20s. What do I want to do to serve my community? And I really do think that working now in state government and working in water has been able to allow me to do so. But pivoting to water from Attorney General's office, that was a massive pivot, because I had never imagined that I would be able to work and become an industry professional and learning what I've learned. And when I realized, when I applied for the job, doing the environmental justice films, we were looking at water. We were looking at tribal water rights. We were looking at the early undamming the Klamath issues, and we were covering the fish wars, you know, up there in Trinity. And so there, and when some of my mentors said, "Well, you already know what's going on in California water. You're working on this on the film industry. You have a pulse on what's needed." And so that prompted me to be able to have the confidence to say, okay, I can look at and pivot to the water job. And so that's kind of that roundabout way of everything you do, no matter where you are in your career, is really learning and being a foundation that's going to bring you to that next opportunity that will be there. And equipping you, even though you may not realize that those skills are being developed at the same time.
Well, and water intersects, doesn't it?
It definitely does.
All right, well, we're going to hear from Taryn and Helen, then I want to come back with a question specifically about the evolution of women in water. So before we get to that, though, Taryn, what about you? Are you where you thought you'd be on your career path that you envisioned for yourself? And how did you get hooked with the water bug? And how's it been going? Because it's a tough field, isn't it?
Yes.
Tough topic.
It is a tough topic. You're right. You're right. You know, it's to answer the first question. I really had no idea that I would be sitting here today among esteemed colleagues in a position that I view as very significant and emblematic of where the water industry needs to be going. Right now, again, I mentioned a regional water infrastructure project. No, but 20, 25 years ago, no, I would not have envisioned that. I go back to having made a decision. I was a judicial fellow, actually, in the state of California system of capital fellows programs. And when that ended, I just got on a plane and I went to Washington, D.C. and said, I'm going to work in policy. It wasn't specific to water. Actually, water wasn't even part of my thought process at the time. I walked the halls of Congress looking for a job, got one with Senator Barbara Boxer, and it was through that time I was really realizing I wanted to focus my attentions on an area of public policy, and that's when I ended up finding a job with the Association of California Water Agencies. When that job opportunity came my way, again, not kind of a linear focus, but just one of the opportunities, I really thought about it. I thought, why would I choose this job? And for me, water is something that everyone needs. And my interest in how I approach work is meant to be from a collaborative standpoint. And I recognize that water is something that everyone needs, which means they will come to the table. So we have an opportunity, right, to work on something as really a social responsibility, to work on something that everyone needs, every living thing needs. So I was very intrigued by that. That has been the kind of the grounding of anything else I've done in water. That work with ACWA was essential. I moved on as career paths do, and chose to go to law school, kind of breaking things up. And I will say that I had thought at that time water had chosen me, and I hadn't chosen water, despite what I just said. And so I took a little break, worked in the wine industry for a little while, but in mentioning that, you need water for that. Yeah, it's kind of a biblical professional trajectory, water into wine and wine into water. And but that time, what was really important about that was because I was around the agricultural space, working in the field at that time, again, I can't stop thinking about water from kind of any angle that I do. So I eventually returned, and I specifically chose water this time. So I was very pleased with that. But in terms of the space of water, and I guess kind of going to your question of, you know, what really drew me to this, a lot of it is also the people. So it's the purpose, but it's also the people. Through this journey, again, because so many, water touches so many people, and we are trying to work through these very challenging problems that we all have to find some way of benefiting from as well. I've found the way that people have been approaching the water industry, particularly, and I know we'll get to the evolution of things, so I won't touch on that yet, but very, very interesting. We have, you know, the technical side, the policy side, the community side. And so that has been a very strong driver for me. And so to be continuing to find ways to contribute to society through the water industry has been, I'd say, the most fulfilling part of my professional journey.
I agree. Well, Helen, tell us what you think of your career path so far. Is it what you've envisioned? And how did you get sucked into the water, the water arena?
Well, I grew up in Vietnam. We immigrated to the United States when I was around 10. And so interestingly, you know, growing up, since we came here early on, I didn't speak English very well. So all my counselors were saying, well, you're good in math, you're good in science, so you should be an engineer. And I'm thinking, okay, I can do that. And then I started deciding what engineers I wanted to be. And when I visited a wastewater treatment plant and just watching the process of the water getting clean from, you know, very dirty to clean that you can put it back to the environment was when it kind of drove in. I want to be in wastewater, specifically wastewater. And so it's like, where can I go to pursue a degree in wastewater? So I had a great mentor in high school, and he, you know, kind of pointed me to the right area. And I went to Cal Poly and focused my study in environmental engineering. And on my last 2 years, of really focused on recycled water and wastewater. And then when I was looking for a job, and I interviewed with Regional San, and I got a tour of the treatment plant, and I was like, oh wow, I wanted to be here. And so here I am. I didn't quite took the engineering path as most engineers do. You know, as in my younger days, I wanted to try everything, design, anything I can get my hand in, so I can do wastewater or focus on wastewater. To now, I'm, you know, go from you know, doing regulatory work, and then I went on to our policy and planning group to learn about master planning, things that are way too far that you know, you can really not picture what it looks like, but I'm glad because it feels like I'm turning full circle. The recycled water that we had planned about 10 plus years ago are now being constructed via the Harvest Water program. So that's kind of exciting to know that when I started out as an assistant engineer with something that I worked on is now being put into or constructed and eventually serve the greater Sacramento area with recycled water and helping to relieve our groundwater system. And to now managing the controls and electrical systems group. Like I mentioned, I have a degree in environmental engineering, nothing in electrical engineering or control systems. So I am, in a way, kind of scared to dive into something that I'm not trained, but I have good supervisors that serve as their technical expert in their area. So to that extent, I'm grateful that, you know, they help take care of the day-to-day technical work, and I just, you know, in a way, ride on their coattails of success. Yeah. And then I also, you know, in the last 10 plus years, do administrative work that aren't engineering. So it's a good learning experience. It's an opportunity I did not envision as a young engineer doing, you know, budgeting and you know, it's a process, but I was able to learn from it and help kind of develop a guideline to help streamline the process. So I kind of, in a way, make it the way that it should be. So I'm kind of glad to be able to dive into that and learning the world of HR. We have a lot of technical staff in operations and maintenance, so being able to help develop a class that are beneficial and applicable to the wastewater industry. So that really opened my eyes to the other side of engineering. To me, it feels like, you know, it's a problem, engineering solve problems, so it kind of helped pave learning opportunities is how I view it.
Definitely, and recycled water is so elevated now, right? It used to sort of be in the background, but it's front and center. So I just hear such a great theme. I mean, you really all have followed your values you know, things that drive you more internally, and you don't say no, as in you say yes to different opportunities. And I think those are some good lessons to pass along to everyone that's watching. Yeah. All right, now I'm coming back to this one. So women in water, women in the water industry, I know when I started many years ago, over 3 decades, there weren't very many women in water. But today we see more and more and more and more and more. So what I want to hear from you, I'm going to start with you, Taryn, this time, is what do you think has most evolved for women in water in the industry? From your vantage point, what have you seen, the trajectory, and where do you think the opportunities are for women in water? And there's a lot, when we say water, there's so many angles. I mean, look what you all represent. So tell us what your long view, when you look back and you look forward, how has it evolved?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a good question. You know, one of the things, something that all of us can recognize is that we're seeing more women just in the professional, the range of professional positions. I definitely have seen that. So I'm so pleased that the water industry has been kind of enveloping young professionals, female professionals. Jennifer, you and I have had an opportunity to work together as well.
Yes.
I've been in many a room where, you know, we may be the only women. Just a very quick story. I was just in Washington, D.C., had a meeting with the commissioner of the Bureau of Reclamation, and the leadership of the Joint Powers Authority happens to be all women. And we were sitting across the table. She walks in and she literally stopped and was like, "It's all women." It's like, and the fact that in 2023, one is we have a female commissioner of the Bureau of Reclamation, which I think is fantastic, and she's not the first one, so I will acknowledge that, but that's you know, remarkable. But to have her be shocked that the people coming in to talk with her representing California Water were women was a little disappointing because it's 2023, but also very exciting because we're continuing to make that progress. So we are seeing more women entering the engineering fields, the science fields, and one of the things I was thinking about the evolution is that over the last 20 years or so, with the environmental movement, how we're also looking at being more collaborative. Women are problem solvers, as you mentioned, Helen, and I think that concept of there are plenty of problems in the water industry to solve, and we need to be putting our best foot forward to hear from the other side, and I believe women are just very collaborative in that way. So it's kind of gravitated to work more with the communities, more with the environment, advocating on behalf of smaller voices, so to speak, and I think that part has been very, very important and helped women in find their niche. And now we're seeing more and more, and I want to have us in the room all the time.
I would have loved to have seen her face when she walked in.
We did take a picture. We did take a picture.
That's right.
Yeah.
Took a picture. So Helen, what about from your vantage point?
I think there's a lot more, you know, like Taryn mentioned, when I first started, it was very few, and now I see, you know, a lot more coming in the field. Even when I went out to career fairs and talked to younger students, and you know, they would ask, like, what do engineers do? You know, how do I become an engineer kind of questions. I think there is that interest and that mindset on you know, doing something, and environmental is big. My kids talk about it, my daughter especially. So it's kind of nice to hear, and I think there, you know, whether we do outreach or just going into a classroom specifically talking to the younger generations, bring them in, and the more they understand, I think the more it opens the doors for everyone.
Right, no roadblocks for the next generations. Anecita, you have a lot of different perspectives on this, right? Not just women, but you know, diversity, equity, and inclusion overall.
Yes.
What would you say that you've seen?
Well, I'm really pleased that even at my department, our department is headed by women. our director, our lead deputy director, and many of our deputy directors. As Taryn mentioned, she's probably, was one of the deputy directors that broke that mold, and expanding many of our deputy directors now, I think it's at least 60% are women leading the Department of Water Resources. Yeah. But scaling it back to a perspective, when I look at water and I look at my trepidation early on and like, well, can I even do water? And you realize, yes, because women have always carried the water throughout generations, throughout time immemorial. Who has been the ones who have been carrying the water, carrying the burden, and really, tending what we need to do. And so it makes sense that with this evolution and progress and equity, that women are now having that ability to be leaders. And that those ceilings, those walls are all being broken down because women are equipped to do this, and they have the ability to do so, not as engineers, but environmental scientists, social justice, and through all of those evolution of what you need for real quality water management. And we're just seeing that, and that's the biggest industry trend that I have seen. And then being able to the water industry trend to embrace the social principles of of land management from that, and so being Navajo, we're all about the duality of the female and the male perspective, and so much of it is you need that balance, and and water is that. And you talk about, when we talk about what we've experienced in California with the catastrophic flooding and fire and earthquakes and drought. But there's a female-male quality to those things, and so rain in itself has a female quality. And when you have soft female rain versus the thunderous rain, you need that balance. You need that nurturing of the land. And I think that women in general, we have that intuition, regardless of where we come from. And I think that that's really what I see, and how policy is now being more holistic in that approach, and that is nurturing that female energy of how we look at policy. So that's just something that I'm excited to continue to explore, even what I do in water policy management of that. And we step away of like, what is that holistic approach? And it makes sense, because if we listen to what nature is telling us, I mean, those are the answers. I mean, the answers are there. Our job is to listen and to find those answers, but the answers are there. Nature can provide that. And if we step away, and COVID showed us that, when the world stopped and nature was taken over, and telling us we can do this. And I mean, I just think about those precious moments, even though it was a horrific time, people losing loved ones, but nature was doing its thing. Nature was telling us, it was the axis was slowing down. We were able to breathe. We had less cars out there. The waters were showing that they were coming back. I mean, plants were coming back. Animals were returning. I mean, we need to remember what the power of nature and what it can do when we think about water industry, and how we have that older generational approach. And I'm not saying the older white male generational approach. Did I say that?
No, you did not.
Of water management. Like, there is a new way to manage water from old standards. And I really do think that this is an opportunity now, and I do see that as industry trend when we have more female leadership and more of a balance. And it's a balance of style. I mean, I just think that's a really exciting progress of where we are in the water world.
Right, we need all the voices. We need everybody in the mix, right?
Absolutely.
I love how visual your response was. I just imagined women who still do carry water around the world, right? So lovely. I loved all of your responses. And now shifting gears a little bit, we talked about taking care of the resource, right? I want to know a little bit more about how you all find balance and take care of yourselves, knowing water is a very demanding business, right? And you all have very important and responsible positions in your organizations. So how do you find the balance, the elusive balance, between your professional world and your personal world? What's your secret? Let's see, we're going to start with you, Helen.
Okay.
Come on.
Not much of a secret. You know, having very trusted, supportive colleagues and family and friends are really important. You know, being a mom as I rise in my career and when my kids were younger is a constant struggle. Do I spend too much time at work? I feel guilty. I'm not doing enough for my kids. I still struggle, and my kids are 14 and 16. So some days are really tough, you know, just to let it go. But through my experience, I've learned that, you know, when it's time to go home, the work can wait until tomorrow. I need to spend time with my kids because that's very important. They're growing up, and I don't really have, you know, the catch up, right? I can always catch up with work, but I can never catch up with the time with my kids. So that's kind of where I drew the line at, okay, I can put that down. I'll come back tomorrow with work. It'll stay there. It'll be there. But my kids, you know, I might miss a music performance show that I'm never going to be able to make up except watching it on a TV kind of thing. So that's been struggle. And having, you know, my husband's been very supportive in my career as I choose to move up. When we first started both ending up in management in our early careers, and our kids were like infants, and we were both struggling, and so having him there to help me and lift me up when I needed it was really helpful. And then my colleagues that I can rely on some days are, you know, when I walk out of a meeting very frustrated, especially, you know, when my voice isn't heard, and I walked out there thinking, oh my gosh, I do not want to be in that, you know, meeting again. And so having that colleague that I can go in, sit on the couch, shut the door, and just tell them, can I just vent? So that was really helpful. Even, you know, just that moment, being able to just get things off my chest and just calm down and not be judged was very helpful for me. I still struggle with, you know, balancing, but I think I've learned a little bit since, you know, the younger days.
That's excellent. It is a tug of war for sure when you have kids. And Taryn, what about you?
So I find balance to be such an interesting word, and I think it's tough. I don't know if I've ever actually quite had balance. I think it's a continual pursuit. I do appreciate how you started, Helen, with balance being around the friends and family that are grounding you, and I will acknowledge a great reliance on that support network, and also that includes the professional mentoring and colleagues that I have. Those relationships do help make things manageable, but balance is, again, when I say a constant pursuit, it's always a conversation with myself, because I think priorities continue to change, but we have to recognize that we need to prioritize ourselves. So that's really a journey I'm continuing to be on. I will say that one way to find some balance in these days of water conservation has been challenging to appreciate a bath, because a bath can help me feel a little bit more balanced. And they're getting shorter and shorter, right? These are like once a month, and I'm in like 2 inches of water, you know. But you can appreciate it. You can appreciate it. So I really feel that it's a journey for me. You know, being able to take time away from the computer is really important. I know a lot of us are beginning to understand, especially in the virtual world, we can take meetings now even on a walk or something like that. Not that we want the meetings following us on our walk all the time, but it's just, where can we fit ourselves in? And that's, I think I'm getting better at that, but it is still tough. It is still tough.
It is. It definitely is. I like the bath analogy here. A little bit of water, but you're still in there. Now, Anecita, tell us about that mug.
Oh my God, yes. I brought my mug. This is called GOAT, G-O-A-T. So one of my other COVID projects is trying to find a balance of what to do, is I founded another nonprofit called GOATs. It's Golfers of All Tribes. And so what I've learned to really get things out of my head when you've had a busy day is learning how to golf. And that really will clear your head of anything you're dealing with when you're just concentrating on that particular task at hand. And by no means am I an expert golfer at all, but this GOAT was founded by 2 female Navajo women my co-founder Cynthia Whitty and I, and we have founded, and we've been around for 3 years now, and we facilitate golf tournaments. And it's evolved to facilitating golf tournaments from just being a golfing club. And our goal is to encourage women to learn to golf so that they could advance their professional careers. Because so oftentimes you're not golfing in your company sports or doing it for yourselves because you look at it as it's inexpensive. There's not opportunities for that. So our goal is to introduce it to women golfers and as well as mentor youth into it. So we've been having a lot of fun, and that's been a good balance for me. And obviously, Helen, what Taryn said about pampering yourself, nurturing your soul, relying on your family, your community, your mentors, and I could not do it without that community support. And you also need that community support from your professional and your career, your peers, because like you mentioned, am I ready for this? Am I over my head? I'm trained in this, but I'm being asked to do this. That happens all the time, and it happens to me. Like, oh, now you got to be an expert in this area. How do you then translate to your community? And I do think that hearing and feedback from trusted friends that support you, that you feel that yes, you're never too old or too jaded to learn something new in the water industry, because it is constantly evolving. I think having an open mind to be able to embrace those new technologies, new approaches to that. And then my goal also is to introduce that holistic approach of of tribal science into our lexicon of what is Western academic science. And so I get such great satisfaction in seeing that change, that needle change in that policy arena. And that gives me such professional and personal satisfaction to be able to see that. And I try not to say I'm water all the time, which I tend to be. And then you get guilty when you want to read fiction because it's like, okay, I should be reading these technical reports. Right. And so then I go to golf. And that's so I find that as a great opportunity. So
exercise is really important, isn't it, to clear your head? And I want to come back maybe if we have time to talk more about your specific mentors. But we do have a question from the audience that we want to take. Thank you, Megan.
Thanks, Jennifer. So Christy asks, and this may be a good question for Anecita to begin with, since I know you've mentioned quite a bit of your work around really promoting and bringing more folks into the industry. So what strategies do you envision to promote gender diversity in leadership roles in the water industry? She notes that there are many more women entering the water space, but generally still falling behind when it comes to staying in the field long term.
Yeah, that's I think that is a question that needs to be embraced by the water community in general, and I know that it is being embraced. I mean, there's so many opportunities as if you're in college, you have the opportunity to be a college students to join cohorts or to be interns and choose a water organization and offer to be an intern. If you're in high school, there's opportunities through also being an intern. We sponsored at the California Department of Water Resources the first youth water protector certificate for high school students, specifically for tribal youth, not only in California water law and policy, but also an introduction to GIS mapping. And I do think that water is so unique that you can do any industry expertise, GIS mapping, all of those things can assist you in a water industry. And then if you're mid-career and you're thinking about a change, looking at organizations that are sponsoring this Path to Power, that support that type of industry change. Those are going to be where you can find a mentor. And I think a first step is maybe looking for mentors. And I'm constantly being asked to be a mentor. I'm happy to do so. And also, if the person who asked the question would like to connect with me, we can definitely make that happen. And I'm not sure where you're from, but if you're anywhere in Northern California, yes, let's get together and and talk more.
We'll get a little follow-up. And yes, thank you for flagging. AWWE has an amazing mentorship program, and I've done a lot of research on this topic as well. Mentorships and internships are key avenues for those younger folks coming into this industry and for folks from all different backgrounds to really better understand the industry and become known so that they can ultimately maybe get a job and be in this industry. All right, it sounds like we've got another audience question. Megan.
We do. Jennifer, I'll let you choose where to start with this one. So Denise asks, how has your past set you up? Oh, sorry, I lost my screen. How has your past set you up for success? And what are some of the skills you have found to be useful in your success, to be successful? What skills do you rely on the most?
All right, let's see, Taryn, and maybe Helen, you can add on to this as well. Let's start with Taryn.
So, you know, the interesting thing, I was thinking about what's kind of a takeaway even from events like this, and what would you say to yourself? And one thing was to be easier on myself. And I think that has been a journey. So the path for me, my past was I was assuming that there was one right way to do something. And that's clearly not the case. So over the couple of decades in my career, I've been choosing to also make sure that the staff I've had or the colleagues I see, that we remind ourselves there's no one right way to do this. There are no specific answers, especially in this water world that touches so many people, right? There are a lot of opportunities for creative solutions, and creative solutions can be embraced, and especially if you can embrace it first. And so for me, I'd say that's something I've been working on as well, is needing to remind myself of all of that. I feel that the industry has caught up to some of that as well. They're much more open to creative solutions and listening differently maybe than they have in the past. I think we also have a tendency to have to relearn the lessons that so those have been coming back in different iterations in my life. So I think being able to say, you've got this, you've been able to do things before, you've managed, you can do this again, and also just knowing that I'm probably my own worst critic, and in fact my standards are high. So just be open to being easier on myself in that way has come from, I'd say, all of that.
Sort of trusting yourself and your instincts, right? If we hear that little voice, we should listen to it. How about you, Helen? Do you have some specific way that you've found that has been helpful in your career? Skills that you've used, kind of techniques, strategies?
You know, I like what Anecita and Taryn said about being open mind. I find myself doing that, or trying to tell myself to do that, because a lot of times you don't know what the opportunity or what's ahead of you. So keeping an open mind, even though you might be in, say, an assignment that you are not familiar with, but keeping that open mind and learning, taking that opportunity as a new challenge, a new chance to learn something new, and perhaps it takes you to a different level. So as I'm growing in my career, every chance I am given, taking that as a learning opportunity and as a new challenge. Yes, I might not have done anything in budgeting when I first started off. I don't know the world of HR, but being able to learn and make something out of it, I find that very challenging, because I can take, it almost feels like I take a blank sheet of paper and make it whatever I want it to be. So, to that extent, some of my colleagues or even my husband might tell you she's very stubborn. And to that, I think that helps, that's where I want to go, and trying to, keep it going like that, and just, help myself, even though, and learn something new.
Take on the challenge, in other words, even if you haven't done it before, right? Try. And I know I don't love this expression, but you hear it a lot, fake it until you make it, right?
That's true.
And we don't have to admit here that any of us have ever done that.
And yet more people have.
Exactly, exactly. All right. Do we have anything else from the audience at the moment? All right, so this is kind of shifting into this question about specific advice, right, from your own experiences, what now, and you've alluded to a little bit of this, so if you feel like you've covered it, you've talked about it a little bit, Taryn, what advice would you today, if you look back at your younger self, what advice would you give yourself that you might want to share with others? Something that's really been a key nugget for your career paths. Who wants to go? How about you, Anecita?
That's a tough question because, you know, when my younger self, I really felt like I was always running fast. Everything was fast. You know, you had all these milestones you had to meet, and society was pushing you. So I guess my answer is, you know, don't let those societal norms define you or your goals. And that's something that I've shared with my children. Is like, no, you have your own beat, your own drum that you have to walk to. It's your own career path, and if it takes you longer, that's okay. And I think that ultimately is like, you know, what's going to make you happy at the end of the day? And, you know, because health and wellness and that balance is most important. And I do think that I felt like when I was younger that I wanted to do everything all at once, you know, and have it all at once. And
everything is due tomorrow.
Yes. and I think now when I say, wow, did I savor everything or every opportunity? And I do look back and I do think about all those experiences, and I did have some incredible opportunities that if I wasn't faster and running ahead of the person behind me, I may not have been able to do that. But that's what society was forcing us to do. Not everybody has to be the winner. You know, we can all, you know, share in those experiences, and I do think that's something I'd love to be able to see the next generation of how we nurture our young people and how we nurture people in the industry, is that we don't have to be a winner. And especially in the water industry, we're told that everything's commodified. There's a balance, there's a budget, and there's a plus minus column. And it should not have to be that, because water is everywhere. Water is life, water is for everybody, and everybody has a human right to water. And so we need to change that paradigm shift of how we looked at our younger self and our goals that were instilled upon us of how to be, and that have nurtured us to tell us, like, as a professional, be the top, be the winner, you know, at the expense of what? Yeah. You know, and so I don't know if that's a appropriate answer or not.
It's a perfectly excellent answer. Yes. I love it. Taryn, how would you put it into words, if you can? Your advice to your younger self.
Yeah, I mean, I think I touched on it a little bit, so I'll try not to repeat that portion, but I definitely really appreciate what you were saying, Anecita. There is a kind of goalposts that we give ourselves, and I think there is social norms and ways of kind of articulating achievement and how we, you know, say this is success or this is not. And it takes a while to recognize that. In fact, I personally believe that if you make decisions for yourself, then you are a winner, right? So it's kind of changing that a bit for ourselves and putting that perspective on, you know, we're the ones that have to live our life. And again, this is still a journey for me as well. But I don't have all the answers, but for me, I'm trying to harness that and appreciate that my chosen path means that I'm successful because I'm doing what I've needed to do for me. Being more honest with myself about what those things are is really happening for me now, as I've had a couple, you know, decades to look back on. And I think if, you know, when we're younger, I tried very hard to be like, I don't regret this or that. I wanted to make sure I wasn't going to regret anything. And I think that's unavoidable, by the way, because I do acknowledge that I think I was a very fast-paced person, and I was very ambitious and driven, and I think this is kind of how we get to be where we are, but in doing that, we do sacrifice some other things, and part of that is maybe experiencing the experiences more fully that we've had, and the joy and the accomplishments that go with those. That's something I'm taking to heart now, and if others can appreciate their successes more and accomplishments more, and take that time rather than feeling they need to go to the next thing, yeah, that would be something that,
That's good.
you know, I'm
Take a
striving for.
pause, pat yourself on the back,
Yeah.
right? Celebrate, and then maybe move on. How about you, Helen? What words of advice would you give your younger self?
Very similar to what Taryn and Anecita said. Take a break, take a pause. I'm, you know, in my younger days, I'm like Anecita, just go, 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 looking for that next promotion, kind of, you know, always wanting to get to that next step before I even start where I'm at. So looking back, I you know, especially in the last couple of years, is what is it that I want? What is it that makes me happy? Especially having, you know, been through some health scare, kind of makes you realize, at the end of the day, what's more important? I can have that next promotion, but is it at the expense of my health or is it at the expense of my family time? So to me, that balancing and trying to struggle that, well, if at the end of the day, I'm where I'm today and I'm still happy, I'm still healthy, I can always go for that next promotion again. But if I don't have the health that I need to go for that next level, then I won't. So these days I say, you know, just be happy of what I have right now, and I feel that's really helpful in making me realize what's the more important thing. So not that next climb, although it's nice to have that next climb, but you know, to also realize I'm also happy where I'm at if I don't get to that next level, because I'm satisfied with the things I do.
That's so interesting. It's that idea, you know, we can burn ourselves out pretty well, right, ladies? And I know many others, same thing. I don't know, David Chang wrote the book Eat a Peach, and he says, save something for the swim back. And I don't think a lot of us do that. I think we have another audience question.
We do. We have one last audience question. What would you say to someone who wants to get into the field but doesn't have a college degree?
Who wants to take a stab at that first?
I can try.
Yes.
Please. So I would say, you know, there's no requirement to have a college degree. I go to career fair and I tell people, you know, where is your interest? Like Anecita and Taryn mentioned earlier, you don't have to be an engineer, or you can be an operator, you can be a control system person. You can make it however you want to be, as long as you're doing a part to help with, you know, water, doing something about water. At Regional SAM, we have technical careers that does not require a degree. You can, you know, walk out with a high school diploma and come in and have a very satisfied career that you can grow and advance into supervisor or managerial positions. So I would say, you know, keep an open mind and try something that, you know, put your interest and make a career out of it.
Like a water operator is a great career path, right? We're going to, I think, hear about that more in the series this week.
Oh, good.
Any other thoughts?
No, I just was going to comment that, you know, the Department of Water Resources has a very well reputable apprentice program. And I think that offers up for people what their interests are, gives them a great opportunity to look at the range of kind of vocations that exist in the water industry. And I think there are opportunities like that are out there. I definitely would recommend looking at the DWR website, for example. But again, I think it's figuring out what it is that you'd like to do, and I think there's something within the water industry, hands down, for any component of that.
I agree. And our apprentice program is really, really supportive. It's open. It's a year-round program, open for recruitment. And once you're in, you have your foot in the door. I think with any industry or any company, if you're dedicated and you want to continue, there's going to be support. There's going to be support for training. And I do think that I see that a lot in the water industry, that it's there. Once you're in there, people really do want to uplift and support other people in the industry.
Absolutely, and go to those junior colleges, community colleges. You'll find a lot of paths for water there as well. So I don't know if we have time for the lightning rod question. We do. Excellent. Okay, this is something, just the first thing that comes into your mind, ladies, and don't think about it too much. So what's the one thing you would want others to learn from your experience? One thing. Anecita.
I think, I don't want to be a sad note, but I do want to say that what my experience is that water is still not available to every citizen in California and the United States. And we have a lot more work to do to really make water equitable.
Good, thank you. Taryn?
I would
One
say
piece of advice.
don't give up, because the water industry is challenging in that way. And I think whatever draws you to it, just remember that and don't give up.
Excellent.
And I'll follow up with keep an open mind and try something new. You never know what kind of path you can carve. You know, next year you might be sitting on one of these chairs.
That's right.
That's excellent. Thank you all so much. Our panelists have done an awesome job today. Thank you all for sharing, really putting yourselves out there and being vulnerable to help others coming up, right, in our industry. It's always wonderful to have these kinds of organizations helping to put these kinds of things together. So I want to thank our organizers and our event sponsors for this panel. And there's 2 more panels this week, so make sure to tune in to those. But again, our organizers for this celebration of Water Professionals Week, the ACWA Foundation, AWWE, of course, the WWEE, BAYWORK, California, Nevada, AWWA, CASA, and CWEA, California Water Environment Association. So once again, thank you all for joining the panel. It's been wonderful to lead this discussion, and I hope you got a lot of good nuggets and advice that you can take to heart and apply to your own careers. So thank you all very much for joining.